The Secretary of the Bangalore branch CABT scheduled to introduce the today's speaker CA KS Ravishankar.
Thank you, Mr. Corey. First of all, my heartfelt thanks to each one of you who elected me for the second term of Bangalore branch of ICAI. And my thanks to my managing committee members for unanimously elected me as the secretary of the branch for the term 1920. Coming to the next session, landmark judgment impacting GST by a renowned advocate, CA KS Ravishankar. Friends, it is my pleasure to introduce the renowned advocate to this August gathering. A brilliant chartered accountant, fellow member of ICAI and ICSI, is a graduate in law, Master of Commerce. He has qualified as a chartered accountant in the year 1982, practiced as chartered accountant for 16 years before joining the bar. An advocate par excellence, he is one of the front-ranked tax lawyers of South India. He practices before tribunals and the High Court of Karnataka in the areas of indirect taxation and FEMA. He has represented industrial majors in the public and private sectors, apart from charitable, religious and educational institutions before courts and tribunals. Hundreds of cases argued by him are reported in leading tax journals. He is passionate for reading, writing and lecturing. In reading, his interest in academics and flair for teaching have motivated him to have one of the largest private libraries on law, accounting, history, archaeology, comparative philosophy, religion, languages and host of subjects. Deserves a round of applause. When it comes to writing, he has authored the largest commentary on central excise valuation, which has run 4 editions, and also a book on central excise audit. When it comes to teaching, he lectured between 1991 to 2000 at IIM Bangalore, IIM Calicut and the National Law School Bangalore as a visiting faculty. He has also lectured at the ICAI and ICSI for over 30 years and addressed officers of IRS and IPS on taxation and white-collar crime and presented hundreds of papers at national, zonal, regional and state level conferences all over India on indirect tax laws, foreign exchange management, and those are all in leading journals. To name a few of his other contributions to nations are: during 2000-2001, he served on the Mitra Committee on Financial and Bank Fraud constituted by the RBI, and in 2002 on the Kelkar Committee on Indirect Taxes constituted by the Government of India. With this brief introduction, I present before you CA KS Ravishankar. Before that, let us pray Almighty's blessing. Light and lightness represents the positive, the good and the good spirits. That way, the presence of light or fire, or in Sanskrit Agni, will ensure success. We all believe that lighting a lamp before starting a program spreads divine grace. The lamp also shows everyone who is present how to rise upwards and dispel darkness. So let us light over the darkness and knowledge over ignorance. I request managing committee member, next officials also join this.
सुप्तेषु जाग्रति यैष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामंशो पुरुषो निर्विमानः निर्विमानः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते अस्मिन् लोकः अस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तनूनात्यभिहितश्च नान्यभिहितश्च एतद्वैता 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 एतद्वैता
Good afternoon to all of you, and I am extremely grateful to the Bangalore branch for giving me an opportunity to come this afternoon and talk to you. This topic GST, I am averse to discussing anything about this GST. Because I feel at this stage I am still incompetent, irrelevant, and inconsequential to talk about GST. Because I have been seeing of late that there have been, I don't know how many hundreds of speakers on GST, and this is the first time, believe me, that I have come to a forum like our institute and dare to stand before all of you and talk to you about the relevance of the judgments that have been delivered by the courts of law in the context of earlier legislations and its relevance to GST law. When the University Grants Commission asked me to deal with GST sometime back at a forum, I was hesitant, but then I took upon myself the task of dilating on this topic for about 45 minutes, but that was much before the legislation was ushered in by the Parliament. I have requested my colleague to assist me. Mr. Anand is a chartered accountant lawyer working with me for about 17 years now. So he has been painstaking enough to prepare a few points for discussion so that I don't go off tangent. Now to guide me, we have these bullet points which you will find on the screen if you wish to see them. And I will dwell on these issues in the context of various topics that are relevant under the old regime and the current regime, and point out how relevant are these judgments of courts of law, more importantly the Supreme Court, delivered since a very long time, because the excise laws of India have been in force for more than 150 years, because from 1878 onwards we have been having laws of excise covering various products like kerosene, matches, splinters, salt and so on and so forth, and we got totally merged in one legislation which came in 1944 from 28th of February 1944, which was repealed recently by the GST Court. We have also several other legislations that have been subsumed into the GST mold, cesses which were levied by under various legislations like the tobacco cess, cess on cigarettes, cess on various items like jute and jute manufacturers and sugar and so on. Today we look at certain aspects of the current legislation and ascertain how relevant are the judgments rendered in the context of the pre-GST regime by the Supreme Court and certain High Court judgments. Before I do that, I would like to point out a provision of the GST law in section 174, which happens to be the last section of the GST law, more importantly the CGST Act of 2017, which has been dovetailed with the other legislations of GST, that is the Integrated Act and the Union Territory Act for GST. If you look at section 174 of the Act, it would provide for repeal and sale. More importantly, it says that any action that has been taken or any proceeding that has been initiated under the earlier regime will continue to be enforced and shall not be obliterated. These are not the words of the statute. I am coining some words which would be useful to understand the gravamen of the provision. So this 174th provision of the law would say that if any proceeding has been initiated under the repeal legislations, that proceeding shall not in any manner be obliterated by, or shall not be eclipsed by, or shall not be overshadowed by the repeal of this legislation. Let us say a proceeding has been initiated against you or by you against the government. A case has been filed by you against the government in any tribunal or any court of law of appropriate jurisdiction, or the government has initiated some proceeding against you in a court of law, or in any other, before any other appellate forum, or before any other settlement commission or so forth. That proceeding shall not in any manner be affected by. That's understandable. That's understandable. This is a transitional mechanism. But the larger question which would remain would be whether you can be proceeded against under the old law after the repeal by initiation of a proceeding after the repeal. This is important. We had a case in the very recent past. Of course, we got the client discharged from the criminal court. It was a case which we had in the case to argue a few months back, 2-3 months back. We argued a case. A certain person had committed certain contraventions. I am not using the word offence. I am using the word contravention. When you say offence, offence means any act or omission that is punishable by law for the time being imposed. Punishment can be rendered only or inflicted only by a court of criminal jurisdiction. This person had contravened the provisions of the service tax law for a certain period, let us say between 11 to 16. Between 2011 to 2016, he had contravened the provisions of service tax law, thereby resulting in a demand against him of 6 crores of tax and 6 crores of penalty and some interest. This person had been served with show cause notices. This person had replied to the show cause notices. He had participated in the adjudication proceedings. Orders against him had already been passed before the GST regime came in, and he had filed appeals against those orders before the tribunal. Those appeals are still pending in the tribunal. A stay has been granted, in some cases stay has not been granted, partial deposit has been made of tax. That being the situation, he was served with a notice and a summon by the Economic Offences Court on a complaint made by the jurisdictional commissioner after the sanction of the prosecution was accorded by the Director General of Service Tax in Delhi. That was done much after the GST regime came into force. That is after 1/7/2017. Somewhere in October 2017, he was served with a notice and a summon to appear before the Economic Offences Court, failing which a warrant would be issued for his arrest and so on. So in such a case, a question which we put to the Economic Offences Court, to the government who was the complainant, this person being the accused put a question. The first question that was put for discharging him was whether the government is justified in bringing about a prosecution against this person after the repeal of the service tax law, which was repealed with effect from 30th of June 2017. The service tax law became non-est. So after the law became non-est, whether a prosecution could lie against him in the month of October, because the sanction also was given somewhere during the month of September. Sanction according to September, prosecution commenced in October. A month later a summon was issued. The question that was put to the government was whether they were justified in bringing a prosecution against him in respect of a law which has been repealed, in respect of no action to prosecute him, to punish him by imposing a penalty or a tax demand or an interest auxiliary to the demand. That was within their jurisdiction, which had already commenced against him and concluded in a certain proceeding, which was pending before the tribunal. But whether the question essentially was whether a new proceeding in the form of a prosecution to punish him and take him to jail for 7 years or 8 years, whatever the term we sanctioned in law, whether that was justified. In addition to it, there were several other issues like the jurisdiction and the competence of the board to issue that particular prosecution, sanction, etc. So this was the primary question. Now the question which arises therefore would be whether you can commence a fresh proceeding and make a person subject to jurisdiction of a law which is no longer in force, or in respect of which no action to prosecute him was taken prior to 3678. So in this case there was a discharge. That's the person who discharged on several grounds, including jurisdiction. So therefore this is a matter which needs very serious consideration. There may be cases of this nature. However, it shall not affect any case that has already been commenced against a person, the repeal. Similarly, does it affect an appeal that you have filed against the government in respect of some law that has been repealed by the GST law? This is an important issue that I thought I will place before you in the context of section 170. Now we take another aspect of law which is more based on taxable territory. Now the GST Act has a connection with goods and services and which deals with taxation of supplies of goods and services in the taxable territory. Now this expression taxable territory is of crucial importance, which has been defined in the Act itself in section 2 of the CGST Act. We have a definition carved out for this expression taxable territory, meaning the territory to which this Act applies, this Act has force, that's the taxable territory. So the question of extraterritoriality would emerge in certain cases which we need to resolve. Can tax be levied in respect of a transaction which has originated overseas, which has culminated overseas? Originating point and the terminating point being overseas, within outside Indian territory. Whether that transaction can be subjected to the levy of goods and service tax is an issue. You may pay for the service, or you may pay for the goods from India. Consideration can move from India. The question is whether mere payment of the consideration from India, which is the taxable territory, would call for subjecting a matter to taxation when the transaction has occurred beyond the taxable territory. This question has to be answered in the light of the provisions of section 2 of the GST law, read with certain judgments of the courts which have been delivered in the context of taxable territory, and whether the constitution permits the Indian jurisdiction to extend beyond the reach of territories to which the constitution itself does not extend. Let us look at the constitution. The constitution would apply to the whole of India. It applies to all the citizens of India. It applies to people who are in India, who are domiciled in India. It would apply to various acts that take place within Indian soil. Now when that be the situation, the law empowers, the constitution empowers the parliament or the legislatures of various states to enact laws that are applicable to the Indian jurisdiction. It does not give them the power, authority, jurisdiction, competence to extend the law of India to an overseas jurisdiction to tax a transaction or tax or bring to its regime or regimen anything that is that's happening outside the Indian jurisdiction. That is the pith and substance of the constitution. That being the situation, the question that emerges is where a transaction has happened, let us say in Spain, in respect of a supply of service from Switzerland, and a payment happens from India. Question is whether that transaction can be subject matter of tax in India. Whether that could be a receipt or receipt of goods in India, or receipt of service in India, or could be deemed to be by a fiction of law, receipt of service in India. This is a very important issue because this happens more often. It would happen earlier. It has happened in the past in the context of service tax law. For example, in respect of a company which we represented some time back, 5 years back, it's now in the Supreme Court, the matter is pending. Infosys Technologies, where the tribunal ruled against the government in favor of Infosys. The question that emerged was, where a transaction has happened outside India in regard to a subsidiary of the company or a branch of the company abroad, where the branch has received the services from another foreign entity or a host of foreign entities, used it for the purpose of its business overseas, but the remuneration is paid from out of India or from an account held by the Indian branch overseas, whether the transaction could be said to be one where the Indian company has received the service in India. The tribunal ruled against the government, holding in favor of the company. This is an appeal. Now the question that was posed before the authorities and which was agitated by us before the tribunal was that this is the transaction to which the Act itself does not extend. The whole Act has occurred outside the shores of jurisdiction, and therefore the Indian government will not have the power or the competence to tax this transaction. Now in the case of GVK Industries Limited, which is a Supreme Court judgment rendered a few years back, where the lead judgment was handed down by Justice Sudarshan Reddy. The Honorable Supreme Court has repeatedly held and followed the very important judgments of the past to hold that the Constitution doesn't permit the Parliament to enact a law where an extraterritorial jurisdiction is given to the government to tax transactions that have been outside the ken of Indian jurisdiction. Now if you look at a decision which was handed over by the Delhi High Court sometime back, 1.5 years back, in the context of service tax law, the Honorable Delhi High Court struck down certain provisions of the service tax rules, whereby the rules empowered the government to determine the place of rendition of service. So the government's rules which said that in certain situations shall be deemed that this service has been rendered in India, has been received in India, those rules were held to be invalid and shorn of legislative competence, and subjugated legislation in respect of which the government had made rules were held to be ultra-vires, because the main provision, the charging provision of the law, did not enable the government to frame certain rules of that nature. Similarly, I would say that if a situation emerges where under the GST law, something which is not happening within the taxable territory is deemed to happen within the taxable territory by virtue of a rule that is framed by the government, that would be held to be a piece of colorable legislation that is open to challenge before a court of law on the ground of territoriality. So this is the aspect which I thought I would bring to your notice in the relevance of the old decisions of the Honorable Supreme Court and various other courts. Now, in the GST law, you have a very hard and fast rule of defining what is goods, defining what is service. So this is, the more you define words and expressions, the more open it becomes to interpretative nuances. I am sure you will agree with me. When you define something and set a boundary for it, it will have a lot of, there will be a fallout in respect of the assessee and also the government in terms of interpreting this particular. For example, if you say means, it's a hard and fast, it means only this and nothing else. When you say includes, it means so many things other than what is especially mentioned there or expressly enunciated in the definition. These are all issues that give rise to debate and dispute very often. Now in the GST law, you would say goods means this, goods includes this, service means this, which is not goods, that would become service, so on and so forth. It becomes a very hard and fast mode of understanding the particular word or an expression which is very plastic. Now you look at the word goods is defined in the what is dealing with it, goods. Yeah, next. Yeah. Yes. So this slide which you are now seeing depicts the topic that I am currently dealing with. Now when you have a very hard and fast rule, as I was saying, you have goods and service. For example, you take the GST law which defines goods in a very hard and fast way. All kinds of movable property. Anything that is movable is good, does not include actionable claim. You have made some exceptions there. Now does this wipe off what the Supreme Court has been saying, or the Privy Council has said before the Supreme Court, or the Federal Court said before the Supreme Court? Does this wipe off the effect of all these judgments that have been time-honored judgments, hallowed by time, sanctified by subsequent judgments? Does this totally wipe off or obliterate the earlier judgment? The answer is no. Those tests are the benchmarks that have been laid down by the Supreme Court of India while interpreting the expression goods, while interpreting what is service, what is the nature of receipt of service, what is the nature of provision of service, that there must be an actual effort in giving the service. There is nothing called as self-service. For example, you will find a very old judgment often quoted by Supreme Court, one of its earliest judgments, Kekabai Trainchild's case, Honorable Supreme Court, Sir Kekabai Trainchild's case. A man cannot do business with himself. You see, that principle comes from that judgment. I can't do business with myself. You see? So that sort of a judgment will wipe off those elementary principles which have always stood the test of time. Now in the context of goods, you have so many judgments of the Supreme Court. Goods must be moved, goods must be marketable, goods must be capable of being bought and sold in the open market, goods must have a shelf life. These are all time-hallowed, sanctified judgments. Can you once and for all say that this is just ridiculous and it's not any longer relevant? Can you bring such a definition and try to enforce the definition? I'm afraid not. Can you say that something which is not movable property, something which is not movable property, which is immovable, this is deemed to be movable? Can you bring such fictions and introduce this fiction? For example, you take this partition which is now here, part of this auditorium. You have a partition there. You can move the doors and slide them or perhaps lock them. That become movable property. So the test of movable property and immovable property is very fundamental when you look at the definition of goods. When you say goods, it should be vendible, it should be marketable, it should be capable of being taken from one place to another. It should be capable of being bought and sold in the open market. You may take a cinema theatre, seats in a cinema theatre or auditorium, which are permanently fastened, permanently grounded, permanently bolted, permanently affixed, permanently attached to the soil because a part of the soil or the earth of the building. An air conditioner like this, which is a permanent fixture there, which has a lot of ducting work, which has a lot of other wiring, etc., which has harnesses, which goes to a connecting point. And that air conditioner, just because you can dismantle some part of it and take it away, does it mean to say that this is not goods? This is goods. It's not immovable. Can you raise such a plea? Can you take us a contention? I'm afraid not. For the reason that the fundamental test of what is goods is that it should be capable of being taken out and transported, doing the minimal damage to the surroundings. Supreme Court in the case of Hyderabad Race Club, a very old judgment, Supreme Court would say that a totalizator system in a race course cannot be treated as goods. Similarly, the Supreme Court in other judgments has said that the cannibalization test, look at this expression used. Just as Markanda Kantu uses the expression that you a decade back, 13 years back. Craft interiors case. Cannibalization test. What was this cannibalization test invented for? They said that, look, if there is a certain fixture that is a part and parcel of a building, or a part and parcel of the soil, if you have to cannibalize that and you have to totally tear apart and rend asunder the ceiling or the flooring or something of that kind, make a destruction or a damage to the setting in which that particular item is fixed, you can't call it goods at all. For the reason that you are cannibalizing it. Once it is cannibalized, nobody will even look at it. Therefore, if you can just plug and play, you remove some fixture like a lamp or a light and take it elsewhere, that is good. But if you have to tear it asunder, break open the ceiling and so on and so forth, the cannibalization test. Cannibal. So that cannibalization test, if you are going to apply, I am afraid, Supreme Court said, no, you can't treat that good. Now these particular tests, movability test, marketability test, shelf life test. Look at the shelf life test. An item has to be consumed within 36 minutes, so 36 hours in the next department. Otherwise you can't, you have to just junk it, you have to just throw it, it becomes waste, it becomes junk, it becomes scrap, it becomes rubbish. Can that be said to be goods? Suppose there is a pipeline through which you are moving item A to another department to make item B. It goes through a pipeline. If there is a halt, if there is something which comes as an impediment to the flow of that particular item or mixture, and it remains there, it may cause an explosion, or it may happen. It may so happen that there is a permanent damage to everything and any loss of life could occur. So in these cases, the Supreme Court would say these items are not goods. They can't be recognized. They can't be moved somewhere else. It has to be used there itself. There is no question of vendability. There is no question of marketability. There is no question of sale. So So in those cases, the Supreme Court has said they are not good. Now these are all important judgments. Now look at a case like this. When the Supreme Court has been repeatedly saying, junk, for example, a carpenter comes to work, a carpenter comes to make a table at your place, or he makes a table at his place and gives it to you. Makes a cupboard, he makes so many things, right? In the course of making this, lot of sawdust comes, lot of other rubbish emerges. In the context of making some other product, some rubbish may emerge. Everything in life has a value, even the old newspapers are having value, right? So all these things have a value. Can you say that they are goods? Can you say they are marketable? Can you say rubbish is capable of being sold? Scum is capable of being sold? Dirt is capable of being sold? So it becomes goods. Can you take an argument to that extent and still tag something which has been repeatedly held as not being goods? The answer is the negative. These aspects, sometimes in our enthusiasm to understand GST law, we ignore the past, and in the course of ignoring the past, we ignore the judgments and the salient principles that have emerged from the judgments that the Supreme Court have been applied repeatedly, time and again, by the different other jurisdictional law enforcing bodies. You can't jettison these judgments all of a sudden and say that no, I'm not going to follow this judgment. It makes no sense in the context of the GST law, so on and so forth. Now, similarly, you look at the case of Union Carbide, the important judgment which has been pointed out. The Union Carbide's case, torch bodies and torch cans for torches. The Supreme Court said these are not capable of being sold. A shell of a torch body. Nobody will buy it. I have to use it myself in the next department for painting it and for putting cells and for putting the bulbs there and so on and so forth. This can't be used for the purpose of sale in the open market and is incapable of being called goods because it is not vendible. It's not, there is no buyer for it. So these type of situations will emerge where you would say there is a rationale or the ratiocination can be applied in respect of an old judgment to say that this law is unchanged because the tests for reckoning them as goods would still be the same as have been handed down by the Supreme Court. Now the GST law, the question of job work will emerge where the GST law would say jobbing operations. Let me explain in a very brief nutshell what could be a jobbing operation. X is the person who owns the material, he gives the material to Y and Y converts the material into something else and gives it back, partially processed or fully processed. That is called the jobbing operation. The explicit provision in the GST law that the jobbing operations are of the nature of service, because you have done away with the concept of manufacture. It's just a point of supply of goods, whatever they be. So if you supply item X, it gets transformed into item Y, but the process of transformation which we would call a manufacture earlier, that operation of a jobbing nature would be a serviced way, as a consequence of which GST will be levied but as a supply of service. Now, Supreme Court has said that the person who is responsible for paying tax in such a situation, in the old law, was the person who actually transforms it. The person who actually transforms it, not the owner of the material. The Supreme Court said in the case of Empire Industries long back, repeated in the case of Kambatwala, repeated in the case of Britannia Biscuit Company. The Supreme Court has again and again said that the liability to pay tax or duty would be the person in whose hands the transformation takes place. Supreme Court said that ownership of material is immaterial to construe as to who is the manufacturer. You may give him a different nomenclature, you may call him a job worker, but in reality he is the manufacturer. What is manufacture? Manu and factura. Manipulating in a factory is a manufacturer, and therefore the person who conducts that operation, who transforms that commodity, who commodifies it into a different item with a different name, a different character, different usage test, it is he and he alone who would be responsible and liable to pay the tax or the duty that emerges in such a situation. Like you did not have at that point in time something called a reverse charge mechanism. You have a direct charge mechanism where the person who does an activity is responsible for payment of tax on that particular transaction, the incidences on the transaction, and the person who carries it out would be responsible for payment of taxes. You didn't have this tax shift mechanism or the reverse charge mechanism, whereby if I buy a manufactured product in a certain situation, in respect of certain commodity, I would be the person, despite being the buyer, who is liable to discharge a tax liability. You didn't have this type of scenario. Now the Supreme Court would say, therefore, the person who does that process, now in this case the jobbing operation on which there is a service tax liability, GST liability, the jobber is responsible for making the taxes because he is the person who independently carries on that activity, although on the material of somebody else has supplied the material to him, but the material ownership is not the relevant issue for the determination of the person who does the operation. The person who puts his own labor, who puts his own skill, who puts his own manpower, who controls the operation, who directs the operation, who superintends the operation, he is the person responsible for the payment of tax. So this is called a tax on a processing operation where there is an emergence of a different item with a new name or new character or new usage where you have a liability to tax. But the fundamental question and issue that emerges is who is liable for tax? Is the owner of the material liable or is the person who is conducting the operation liable? The person who is conducting the operation is liable subject to getting the benefit of input tax credit, which is an instantaneous credit. Now look at this input tax credit. Incidentally, input tax credit is a very important mechanism that has been ushered into the GST regime, and they claimed and they were trumpeting about what is called a seamless system of input tax credit that is going into the manufacturing operation up to the point of sale, seamlessly going in. Now, if it is seamlessly going in, it envisages a situation wherein there is no break whatsoever. The whole amount of credit that is available to the eligible person who is using this into operation should not be interrupted in any circumstance. There is seamlessness of credit. Now this input tax credit in this situation, like a jobbing operation, the person who has sourced the material, the owner of the material, would have paid taxes, input taxes on the material. He passes it on to the other person for a jobbing operation. And if the jobbing operation occurs at the end of the jobber is entitled to the credit of the duties or taxes or GST, whatever you pay on the inputs that have been procured, not purchased, procured from the person who has been handing it over to him. It can't be eliminated at this stage by saying that you are not owner of this, somebody else is the owner of this. All those irrelevant issues can't be brought in by the department to deprive you or deny the credit that is available to you. The case of Daiichi Karkaria Limited, the Supreme Court long back, in the year 1998, if I am not mistaken, however, the Supreme Court would say that in regard to tax credit, it's called the Modvan credit or the Senvat credit which we had here, Supreme Court said that the very purpose is to avoid the pyramiding effect of taxes, the cascading effect of taxes, tax on tax, which is ultimately harmful to the eventual user. That should be avoided. The very purpose of introducing this MANVAT, as you call it, first time, Manufacturing Value Added Tax, in the Shah Committee recommendations of 1985, long-term fiscal policy, improved upon by the Raja Chalaya Committee and the Kepler Committee. The very scheme of input tax credit or input tax credit, which is earlier the Senvat system, Eicher Motors case, Eicher Tractors case, the Supreme Court repeatedly said that there is no lapsing of credit. Look at this. Lapsing of credit is some theory which can't be invented in the scheme of input tax credit. By saying this lapses, if you are discontinuing the operation, this credit lapses, you can't use it. All this doctrine of lapse of Lord Dalhousie will have no place in the law. Will have no place of working the schematology of the entire tax system. Input tax credit is uninterrupted. If you close down your operations, are unable to use your accumulative credit, our courts have said that you are entitled to a refund in cash of that unutilized credit. We had an occasion to argue a few cases on this, which went to the tribunal where we succeeded, the High Court we succeeded, the Supreme Court also the matter was in favor of that, to the effect that even in a closed down circumstance, in an operation where it's closed down, you have inputs which you have paid taxes, they have remained with you, you couldn't use that. It is money expended which was abortive expenditure which you had at the point of time of receipt of the input, you took the credit. What is legitimately taken at stage A can't be defeated at stage B. Look at this is an important principle which emerges from a judgment of the Supreme Court affirming the Rajasthan High Court in the case of Hindustan Zinc. Hindustan Zinc's case was an important case where the reversal rules of Rule 57cc of the Central Excise Rule, Rule 57AD of the Central Excise Rule, Rule 3 and Rule 6 of the subsequent rule came to be interpreted by the Rajasthan High Court in a situation where the department had asked the assessee to reverse a certain portion of the credit on the ground that he did not utilize a particular segment of the inputs for the manufacture of dutiable product. The assessee's argument was that, look, I have brought it into my factory to use it for manufacture. At the time of bringing it into my factory for the utilization in the manufacturing process, I have no figment of imagination or my imagination can't work to a situation where I am going to use this in string A, not in string B. String A is dutiable, string B is not dutiable. I am going to use it only in string A, nothing will go to string B. I can't stop the inputs from being used in one common operation which segments later on into A and B. And therefore at the point of time when I get the goods into the factory, which is the point of time to take the credit and use the credit instantaneously. I don't have to wait for the inputs to get burnt in the manufacturing operation. The moment I get the inputs into the factory, I record them, I take the credit and use it the very same day. The inputs will be lying in the inventory. So the High Court appreciated the argument and said that the department cannot compel you in such a situation to reverse the credit that is attributable to an exempt operation for the reason that when you receive the input, you do not have in the wildest of dreams the thought that you are going to use it for an exempted product. You may use it 6 months later or 7 months later. That does not defeat your right to claim and use the credit at the point in time when you earn the credit. This is an important judgment. This is a judgment in the case of Hindustan Zinc, the Rajasthan High Court, which is affirmed by the Supreme Court of India. In this case also they use this Dai Ichi Karkarya argument. Dai Ichi Karkarya is the earliest judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court. Then you have certain issues that come as a spin-off of this principle which I just discussed. Suppose you have a credit and you have used the credit and it's pointed out to you that this credit is ineligible. You still have a balance and whatever you have used it, you reverse the credit. Are you following what I am saying? Am I going too fast? I don't know. I am not referring to the GST provisions because the GST is a law which is just 1.5 years plus about 1 month and 2 days, and there is no problem as of now because the elections are yet to come. After the elections you have ample room, scope and opportunity to go deep into the nitty-gritties of each section. Of course there are some benefits here and there, but then you don't have any major issue except a few prosecutions that are going on in courts for some nefarious operations of cyclic trading is one such. Some of you may be aware. And there was one chartered accountant involved in that. Future, our chairman was saying, hopes and platform, and this is a platform for some chartered accountants to play some dirty game. The fellows are absconding, I told this afternoon I was told that he's absconding. Yeah, you'll have some questions, go to that. You'll go to that. I know that. Okay. I'm my friend Mr. Pari. So, look at this situation. Now, I was telling you, there are certain consequential problems that emerge. Suppose you have a credit in your books of account, 1 crore. You utilized 50 lakhs, you still have 50 lakhs. And the department would come and tell you, look, 25 lakhs you are ineligible, you have used it all. But you still have a 50 lakh respectable credit there. So what you choose to do is, right, the 25 lakhs, I was not eligible, or I have used it wrongly, I am going to reverse it now. You reverse it, and still there is another 25 lakh. The question is whether the department can choose to saddle you with interest, choose to saddle you with the penal consequences. Courts have said no, because the bill for this case, which we argued for about 3 days in the High Court, and they accepted that and they brought a further amendment a few years back. Now you still look at this case. The situation the courts have gone into was one wherein they had enough balance. When it was pointed out, they reversed it. Yet there is another significant balance lying in the books of account. Courts have said there is no loss or damage to the exchequer in the situation. There is no loss cost to the revenue in the situation. You have made good amount. No interest also, because interest is an ancillary payment to be made only when there is a defeat. You are defeating the interest of the exchequer. There is no defeat of the interest of exchequer, defrauding the exchequer. So therefore there is no liability to pay any interest on the score or saddle you with any penal consequences on the score. So these are principles that have emerged in the context of an earlier regime. So the history of a provision is a settled principle. The history of a provision or the genealogy of a provision is a relevant factor in construing a provision of law for the subsequent period. You're looking at the enacting history, you're looking at the background of a provision, and in that context, in the earlier regime, the courts have held that this is the principle of law that has to be applied to a given matrix. So you can't ignore that principle and jump to a new conclusion or saddle a person with a liability which never could have fashioned under the old regime, because this is just a consequence of the old provision which you have enacted afresh in a new avatar. So you can't say that the earlier principles do not hold good in this situation, like what I just pointed out in the context of input tax credit. Now you have, as I told you, the hard and fast rule or definitions in the provisions of GST Act relating to goods, relating to movable and immovable property. Expressions have been used but not defined. Look at this. Movable property, I spent some time on that, I won't repeat. Then they talk about immovable property. Movable and immovable property. Now, when you talk movable and immovable property, you would essentially have to go to the parent statutes. They may not be agnate, they may not be agnates, or they may not be cognates, but they still nevertheless time-allowed statutes. Like the Transfer Property Act, General Clauses Act 1897, Indian Registration Act 1908. These are all important statutes that have been enforced, pre-constitution statutes, which have not been repealed, which are a part of our legislation even today, the corpus of Indian jurisprudence. Now when you look at these laws relating to transfer of property or registration or Stamp Act or General Clauses Act, Indian Easements Act also, you have definitions for immovable property. Immovable property, anything which is or land or things attached to and forming part of land, ferries, fisheries, ways of right, ways of life, easement. The right of a priest to perform worship in a temple which has come to him since time immemorial from his forefathers and ancestors has been held to be immovable property by the Privy Council. So the scope and extent of this, because it is not movable, it's not transferable, it only goes by genealogy. What is it called? Primogeniture, as you call it. So therefore, these principles can't be just cast out of the window, and you can't have a closed door approach to these judgments which have been rendered. Now the Supreme Court in Indian Oil Corporation's case, for example, a huge tank which was erected, let us say a tank which can have 50,000 liters of some chemical or some oil or something of that nature is erected, permanently fastened, grouted, installed, and there are several weeks of work that go. Now you look at the racecourse road, when you go that side, you find huge trusses and purlins and sort of what they call grade separator, something coming up. Nowadays nobody does work there. They bring it overnight and make a grade separator or erect huge. You go to the backwaters and you go to breakwaters, for example. You go to Project Seabird or go somewhere, they have breakwaters, right? So all these aspects, if you look at, is that movable property or is it immovable property? Because immovable property is not defined, nor have you defined movable property in the GST law. So you have to understand it from the principles that have been enunciated from time to time. Now you look at works contract. Works contract is a very important branch of GST law, because you are going to tax these contracts in regard to work or labor that is performed in respect of goods, service element that is put into bring into existence a huge agglomerate, right? A structure or an infrastructure or a superstructure made of brick and mortar, where you are expending your labor, expending your service, you are giving value to that particular material and bringing it into a different shape, making it a sort of a conglomerate. You are agglomerating so many things to making it a conglomerate. That is what is works contract. Granted, Rankarli's case, the Supreme Court very put in, expend your labor. At that point of time, there was no taxation of these contracts till the 46th Amendment came in the Constitution. Now the judgments that have been rendered in the context of works contract invariably look at goods, they look at movables, they look at immovable property also, and the entire gamut of the definition in Article 366 of the Constitution, which deals with sale, which would deal with various other items that are relevant. They look at works contracts and expending of any labor, in the course of which there is a transfer of goods in the course of execution of a works contract. Now, this happens in regard to immovable property. To bring the immovable property into existence, you obviously require movable property to put on immovable property. Land is immovable property. Earth. The earth is different from earth. Please remember this. The earth is different from earth. Sand is earth. The earth is like samudra. Our chairman was talking about the samudra, right? The ocean, oceanic soil. That is earth. That is the earth. That is the earth. The moment you scoop something here, this is earth. When you put it back, it is the earth. So therefore, that's how it has been interpreted by the Supreme Court. When you look at the earth, it's different from earth. Earth is moving. The earth is not moving. You can't move the earth, only he can move the earth. We have not seen him, we have been hearing about him, we can't see him. The whole problem with us is that, with all of us, we can't Niskalo Niranjano Nirvikalo Nirakata Shuddho Deva Ego Narayana Nat Vidyosti Kachita Evam Veda Nat Vidyosti Kachita Evam Veda Savishnu Reva Bhavati Savishnu Reva Bhavati Om Vitya Grega Harit Namaiti Pacha Narayana Deti Pachista Om Vitya Kakharu Namaiti Dvayakshare Narayana Eti Panchakshara. You know these Veda which you chant in the Narayana Upanishad. We have no time for our own Upanishads in the morning, running to the office or running to the race course or running to the golf course. And still Mr. Ekiraj will come and sit, Ekiraj will come and sit and listen and then put a question on a phone one day. Ravishankar, this provision, what is this? That is the interest they have, the senior people of our provision. 36 years I have learned nothing but hearing them and then trying to answer. That's our karma. Where is the time for Upanishads? Sir, no time, sir. No. So, look at this. The earth is different from earth. Now we look at the earth. The earth is therefore the soil. The earth is the soil. A huge rock is the earth because it is attached to that. You remove it and make gravel. You remove it and make baby jelly or something which you can use to mix it in the soil. Even today you don't have the concept of mixing the cement in front of you. Some huge machine comes and blocks the road for 5-6 hours, dumps something and makes a building, and when you come in the evening there is a building there. That's how it is. I don't know what's going to be tomorrow. That's our construction industry. In the context of works contract, you also have removals, you have a structure, a superstructure, infrastructure, everything on the immovable property. So the immovable property would include what I just mentioned. You have no definition for it in the GST law. So you need to understand from the conceptual point the definitions of various laws which are just depicted there and the court judgments that have been handed over from time to time on those important topics. You can't brush aside those judgments. Look at this. I'll just show you some more issues that are relevant here. Yes. Dominant intention. Now you have this concept in the GST law of composite supplies. Mixed supply. Mixed supply, composite supply. Right? Mixed supply and composite supply. What is the intention? Is the dominant intention one of rentation of services or is it one of sale of goods? Now they don't use the expression sale. Interestingly, they use the expression supply. Right? This word supply is it has no. Some we don't like these expressions and words. Scary of these words. Some of them. Sale of goods, then you would say this is not a sale, this is a transfer, of course. So they say supply. And supply is not defined in the second section. Look at that. The irony is that supply here is defined. grammatical variants. Take it from section 7 of supply. The deemed supply. So every time I need to look at the act, I have to look at someone who knows the act better. So you look at them. So 7th section will talk of different types of supplies. So when you say supply of goods and supply of service, these are the deliberately coined expressions so that you avoid the sale. This is a tax on supply. It may be in the form of sale, it may be in the form of exchange, it may be in the form of... Now, please see this. This is an important aspect. Barter. Every other day there are people coming and talking about this. Sir, barter. I am a developer. The first thing is I am a developer, he is a builder. This is a barter. I said, don't use the expression barter at all. The expression barter cannot be used in a situation where there is immovable property. Fundamental. Never get into the situation relating to immovable property or the matrix relating to immovable property. Barter, never. Barter is exclusively used in relation to goods. Barter is never ever used. I have been reading these indirect tax laws for about 40 years now. Barter is an expression which is not used in the context of immovable property at all. You may use the expression exchange. If you look at the old gift tax law, which we had an occasion to study, most of us, at one point in time, maybe 82 or 83. The transfer definition, the transfer includes sale, exchange, relinquishment of interest, compulsory acquisition of any property, right? So you would have various situations: extinguishment of interest, abandonment of interest, relinquishment of interest, release of interest, surrender of interest, forfeiture of interest, abandonment of interest. These were the expressions that were used in the gift tax law also. In section 3 sub clause 12 of the Gift Tax Act of 1958, and in the context of definition of Transfer and Income Tax Act in section 2 sub clause 47, these expressions have been repeatedly gone into by the Honorable Supreme Court of India. For example, you take the case of Bari Shirin by Kuka and Grosbecker Sabu Limited in the context of income tax law. Conversion of a capital asset into a stock in trade. Conversion, see, I do it, the business is done with myself. That's where the Kikawai principle comes in. I can't do business with myself. Whether you take the market value or the sale value or the cost of acquisition, these questions come. Dalmia Company Limited, Goldmohar Investment, there is a number of judgments of Supreme Court. So when you look at this, barter expression is never used in the context of immovable property. So when they say, I am giving it to him, he makes a building. Yes, that's right, you are participating together and making something. Right? You are two of you participating and bringing into existence something. Where is the question of A giving service to B there? You follow what I am saying? A is a builder, B is the landowner. Both of them say we agree to put up something here. You will use your money power and also your labor and your engineering skills as the developer, builder, promoter. You will also participate. I am the landowner. I give you the land. We bring this up together. I will have 40%. You will have 60%. Where is the question of barter there? I am unable to understand this barter expression in the context of. I am afraid it's wrong to bring in this notion of the fiction. Taxation can never be on the basis of notions and fictions. Supreme Court, the case of Hindustan Polymer, they say that taxation cannot be based on the notional and fictional imaginary concoctions of a government official. So therefore, you need to look at, these are the words of Honorable Justice Ranganathan and Sabyasachi Mukherjee speaking to the court, 43 81 65 Supreme Court 1996 or 1999, it must be later, 1989. Now if you look at these judgments of the Supreme Court, elementary principle. So the charge itself is not there. When the charge is not there, the levy fails. If the levy fails, the recovery fails. If the recovery fails, the assessment fails. The assessment fails, everything fails. Elementary. There is no charge. When there is no charge at all, no question of, when there is no root, there is no tree. So there is a question of the department sitting on the branches and cutting it with a huge tree. The department will fall, the branch also will fall. So therefore you have this judgment of the Supreme Court. Right? Elphinstone Spinning and Weaving Mills, Supreme Court. Where BC Srinivasa Sethi, Supreme Court. Tata Sky latest, RMV Falcon, Supreme Court. Charge fails, valuation fails, collection fails, recovery fails, assessment fails, everything fails. Failure. Right? Entrance examination pass ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅವರು ಮೆಂಬರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಆಗೋದು ಎಂಟ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರು ಬರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಪಾಪ FC ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಫೇಲ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ CA So it's like that. You have this system where elementary principles that have been there will always have to be worked from the old judgment. You can't forget the old judgment. Look at this doctrine of mutuality. Club. It's a raging issue. Recently we argued a matter for golf club recently. We got a relief in that case, holding that the club is not liable. The Bangalore club case, Century club's case, and contrary judgment is on there. So this mutuality principle, what does this mean? Now, this is a mutuality principle. I don't know why Institute is paying service tax and that tax, GST for this 100 rupees program. Right? My value has been reduced to 100 rupees. It used to be somewhere around 7,500, 8,000 per program for the member, not for me. Now it's 100 rupees. GST included. That's the value. Right? Now look at this. Look at this institute. Why should it pay GST? Members are all saying don't pay GST. Right? All of you tell the clients, and I tell every client who comes, what is this notice? This notice doesn't deserve GST. So now when you look at this situation, mutuality principle. Does the institute exist independent of the members? No. That is a mistake you have made. No. It exists independent of the members because the institute is a body corporate established by a parliamentary statute. The Institute of Chartered Accountants under the 49 Act is an independent body. And the institute brings you into existence, me and you. The institute brings us into existence. But can the principle of mutuality apply to the institute? Suppose you form a study circle. 10 of us form a study circle. We agree to come to a particular place, which may be your office one day, my office one day, another's office another day, another day. You have 10 different places to meet. You have a common pool for expenditure. Each of us will contribute 1,000 rupees. We agree to share the proceeds, whatever expenditure involved for the study circle, having a mic or having a computer or whatever. We agree to share a certain thing in a certain equal division. We have programs for ourselves. We may invite X or Y or Z to talk to us. Give him a memento or give him a garland or give him tea or give him savories and whatever. Now, the question is this liable to tax as a service? And who is rendering a service to whom? So that is where the Honorable Supreme Court has time and again said there is no question of income either being earned or income expended for some other. It's for your own mutual advantage, for your own mutual benefit. You are agreeing to do something together. This is concept of mutuality. Surat Art Silk Cloth Manufacturers Association, Dharmodayan Company, Dharmopochunam case, Local Shiksha Trust case, all these judgments. Andhra Chamber of Commerce, Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry, different judgments of the Supreme Court, which have been used in the context of service tax time and again. Gujarat Sports Club, Karnavati Club, what is that? Ranchi Club, the Saturday Club, several of them. So the service tax law, the judges of the Supreme Court have followed the judgments and the income tax law. This is all mutuality principle. All of us are existing mutually for each other's benefit. You agree to have a cook to prepare food when you come and sit for the study circle meeting. Otherwise you will end up in the kitchen. So you have a cook. You also have a person to operate the electrical accoutrements and apparatus which is available there. So you have people designated to whom you pay. You are contributing for that. Is that a service that you are rendering to one another? There is no service. Without you, there is no club. Whereas in the institute is apart from the member. The institute is supreme. The institute has been constituted in the law for the time being enforced by the parliament. It's a statutory body. It is a statutory body that is created by an act of parliament, established under an act of parliament. You and I have not established it. Whereas when it comes to a club, when it comes to a society which has been formed for the benefit of cooperative society or something formed for the benefit of mutual interest to the people, you have formed it. Institute has not been formed by you and me. Right? It has been formed by the parliament. It exists for the purpose of the members. What the parliament is going to do if all of us die in an air crash on the same day? How many members? About 2.5 lakh members. 2.5 lakh. God forbid. Let us assume. For the sake of then the institute has to continue, right? The government is there, Bharat Sarkar is there, then Bharat Sarkar will decide what is to be done. All of you who are vegetating in the colleges and not passed become members of this. What the Bharat Sarkar does, because I saw some recent, I read some recent report yesterday or before. IIM Act, Indian Institutes of Management Act. Has anyone of you read this act? It's a beautiful enactment. Not a very long enactment, because we are accustomed to seeing only long enactments and wrong and long enactments. But look at this enactment of Indian Institute of Management, 2017, which came into force in 2018. I didn't tell you this. There is a provision which talks about the two things which came to light when I was reading that enactment. Provision dealing with audits. Controller and Auditor General of India will audit, or a person appointed by him. Appointed by him is generally our community, right? Your community. So you will be appointed, like banks and insurance companies. But strangely, there is no reference to the qualifications in the enactment. Requirement for being an auditor, qualifications as an auditor, disqualification. In other legislations, they adopt the Companies Act. Here is nothing. I was just wondering what sort of appointees are going to be there. One. Two. Other thing that I found out, this was the IIM Act. It's a more serious issue. One is about the chartered accountants not being mentioned in that. There is a more serious issue here with the IIM Act. Very grave issue. I wanted to discuss that first. Well, it will come to sometime in the next few minutes. It will come back to me. So this mutuality principle. There is a mutuality principle. The legislation would say taxation is permitted if person A renders the service to person B for a consideration. That means there is a person, identified person A, there is another identified person B, and there is a consideration passing from A to B. There is a liability for a service. This is how the law was drafted initially when clubs and other associations were made liable to tax. Then came a situation wherein they amended it. They said that if a club is rendering the service to a member or a non-member, not being a member of a club, even to a non-member, whatever service you render would be liable to tax. And they brought in a deviation to circumvent the judgments given by the courts, to the effect that if a club renders a service to a member, it shall be deemed to be a service by one person to another for a consideration and shall be brought to tax accordingly. Now these principles, which were fine-tuned over a period of 6 years or 10 years in the earlier regime, have just been removed from the current system of legislation, where there is only one principle that has been inserted in the form of an explanation, right? It shall be deemed to be a business. It has been brought. The rendition of a service by a club or association to its members shall be deemed to be a business of the club. How does this solve or resolve the mutuality issue is a question. When you say that rendition of a service by a club to a member shall be deemed to be a service, that's one thing. Saying that in this legislation by putting in provision to the effect that rendition of a service by A to B shall be a business of A, how does that resolve the problem? I am making the position of law clear here in this context. So that's the issue, the crux again. The club or association, would this mutuality doctrine still be relevant? That's where these judgments which are given there as bullet points would operate against the government This I have already discussed. Now what is that? Related person.
Mr. Ravishankar, can I interrupt and ask a Can I interrupt and ask a very
Let's conclude, Pari. Just give me a minute. I'll conclude and you'll have a free hand and we'll have a mutual. Sorry, I'll just conclude one or two points and then leave it. With a related person, look at this related person. Sales and supplies of goods and supplies of services to related parties. Related party transactions were earlier brought within the scope of the 4th section of the Central Excise Act, which talked about discarding value that is adopted by the assessee when the sales are made to a related person or through a related person. Sales being made to related person, sales being made through related person, two things. You discard the sale value or the assessable value offered by the assessee and you look beyond the assessable value. Right? Transaction value as it is called, which is still there. This transaction value method which was brought into the law, excise law from 1/6/2000 in the form of section 4(3)(d) of the Central Excise Act, is defined transaction value. Now you have transaction value again, which is the basis of valuation to be adopted for the purpose of GST under the 15th section of the GST code. So they talk about transaction value and they say the same thing. If the transaction value is being referred to in the context of related parties, then the transaction value shall be discarded and you shall have a different methodology of evaluation which is prescribed by the government. It is to be prescribed by the government under rules framed under the auspices of section 15. Now who is a related party? Because this subject of related party, related person has been a subject matter of repeated dispute resolution and Supreme Court judgments on this. Whether in the context of excise or context of customs law, it has been a very frequently debated and discussed issue. Now when you look at this related person, the most important judgment that comes to focus would be that of the Supreme Court. Long back, there was a case argued by Mr. Palkiwala, Bombay Tires International case, Supreme Court, 1983, 1896 Supreme Court. Supreme Court went into a question whether this related person definition is unduly wide. The old excise law, before its amendment in 2000, would have a provision which would say 44C, it used to be called 44C, where they defined the related person this way. A related person means a person, look at the word used, person. Related person was not defined. A related person means a person. Person is defined in income tax law. In Central Excise it was not defined. The related person means a person who is so associated with the assessee. Assessee is the person liable to tax. Related person means a person who is so associated with the assessee that they have some interest, directly or indirectly, in the business of each other. Those are the important. That means A has an interest in B, B has a reciprocal interest in A. A related person is a person who is so associated with the assessee that they have an interest in the business of each other. If A has interest in B, but B doesn't reciprocate interest in A, they are not a related person. Right? And that's the Supreme Court judgment. Then, and includes, so first is B, means a person who is associated with the assessee that they have interest in the business of each other. Includes a holding company, a subsidiary company, a relative and a distributor of the assessee. Look at that. It's not any distributor. A relative and a distributor of the assessee and any sub-distributor of such distributor. Now look at this definition. It came up for, it went on for I think 1.5 months. In this case was argued in the Supreme Court on this definition. Related person means any person who is so associated with the assessee that they have interest directly or indirectly in the business of each other, and includes a holding company, subsidiary company, relative and distributor of the assessee, and sub-distributor of such distributor. relative and distributor, sub-distributor of such distributor. Now this came up for this time. Now the argument that was propounded by the counsel, Mr. Palkiva, was that this definition is unduly wide. It gives a tool for the government to harass the manufacturer to say that this one is a distributor, therefore you pay. No, Supreme Court said no, it's not unduly wide. This is part of. He rendered the judgment. Before going to the International Court of Justice as a judge, he sat on this judgment. So he rendered the lead judgment on behalf of the court and said that it's not an unduly wide definition. Look at the definition closely. A related person means a person so associated, not with anybody, with such another person who reciprocates that interest. I have interest in your business, you have interest in my business. That's one category. Means that includes holding company, one class. Holding company as defined in the 4th section of the Companies Act. Subsidiary company. Unless there is a holding, there cannot be a subsidiary. Only restricted. Holding company, subsidiary company. Relative and distributor. Not all distributors. You must be relative plus distributor. Supreme Court said that relative definition again is not unduly wide because it is restricted to the definition of relative. As in section 2 of the Companies Act, read in section 6. In section 2, what does he say? Relative means a relative as defined in section 6. Now, 6th section would say relative, the person should be a relative to another. If they are husband and wife, one. They are members of a joint Hindu family, number 2. They don't use Hindu divided family. Companies Act, joint Hindu family, number 2. 3. They are related in any other way specified in Schedule 1, capital A of the Companies Act, Old Act, 1956. Now they would say, Supreme Court, not all distributors are your relatives. Only such distributors who are relatives, which means only blood relatives. Relative cannot be a company. Understand this. If a company has to be relative, it should be holding company, subsidiary company. Or it should be a person who is having business in your interest, business interest in your business. You are reciprocating that in that category. In the second category, holding company, not there, subsidiary not there. Relative and distributor, only blood relatives of those specified types in the 1A schedule, or husband and wife, or members of the joint Hindu family. If they are your distributors, only those distributors are your related persons. If some relative is there, he is not your distributor, forget it. He is not distributor, he is not your related person. If there is some distributor who is not your relative, no problem, we will not touch you, government can't touch you. And then what? Sub-distributor, such distributor, which distributor? That distributor who is your relative, because of which he has become a related person, his sub-distributor, you understand? He becomes your related person. So the definition of a related person is not unduly wide. Now this judgment has been repeatedly adopted by the Supreme Court to understand the scope of the definition of a related person. Similarly, in the case of Maruti Suzuki, the Honorable Supreme Court in the context of customs law has enunciated what is a related person. Now the customs valuation code which we have from 2000 onwards, customs valuation rules, rule 2, so rule 2 is right, distributor. Sorry, this you have this definition of related person, the Customs Act 1962, rule 2 bracket 2 of the 1988 valuation code which came into effect from 88 or 2000. And that code, the Maruti Suzuki judgment will rule the field. Read with this judgment of Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Bombay Tire International. You have other judgments of the Supreme Court. Now if you look at the definition of related person today in the GST code, it's identical to what you have in the old law, in the Customs Act and the Central Excise Act, both put together. It has been formulated the same way. So the very same principles that have been enunciated by the Supreme Court in the context of the regime, the old regime, will mutatis mutandis apply when you adopt that for the purpose of understanding the related person definition here. You can't discard all transactions. You can discard only the transaction where a related party is a person to whom you are selling and the goods are being sold only to him or only to him. Look at that. If you are not selling only to him, you are selling to others. You can't discard the transaction value. If you are not selling it only to him through others also, you can't discard the transaction value. This is the law that has been laid down to the Supreme Court in several judgments after Bombay Tire. This input tax credit, I have already discussed this. Last but not the least, I'll deal with 2 more slides and then conclude before Mr. Pani can step in. Assessment and recovery. You have provisions in the law related to assessment and recovery. This assessment is a quasi-judicial function and shall be informed by the principles of natural justice which can't be discarded. A person cannot be judged at his own cause, number one. A person who hears you should pass the order. A, hearing you and B, passing an order is not permitted. And before the order is passed, you should be given an opportunity to defend yourself in the presence of the officer who is adjudicating the case. The fundamental principles. In addition to which, you have principles where reopening of time bar assessment. This has been a subject of repeated litigation and there are hundreds of cases decided by the Supreme Court on this. Because it is the practice of the department always to say that you have suppressed facts, you have misled the department, you have misstated facts, you have given irrelevant information and relevant information you have not furnished, so on and so forth. Willful defrauding the exchequer and so forth. These allegations are rife and pedantic almost, they are adopted in all the notices. Question is whether these allegations are supported by facts or these allegations are backed by evidence which has been led by the revenue is something which is to be seen. So you can't discard the evidence and throw the evidence out of the winds and make a charge against a person for a back demand of 5 years and saddle him with savage tax demands and penalties, running into several hundreds of crores. And when the department is in knowledge of the fact, where the department has always been assessing your records and subjecting you to scrutiny, checks and balances repeatedly, where it has been corresponding with you habitually, protracted the exchange of correspondence between you and the department, questions which emerges whether the department can allege and saddle you with the suppression charge. The courts have said that when the department is in knowledge of the fact, you look at the Calcutta Discount Company's case entered in the context of income tax law long back, Supreme Court said, when the assessee has disclosed the primary fact, it is not the business of the assessee to give inferential fact. But if the assessee chooses to give not only primary fact but also places inferential facts at the disposal of the revenue, it is for the revenue to draw legal inferences from the primary facts and the inferential fact. If the assessee has disclosed primary fact and inferential fact and also chooses to give the legal inferences from the primary fact and inferential fact, look at this. Assessee's task is to only do A. Assessee does B. Assessee's task is not only B, just A. He does B. And in addition to B, gives you the legal inferences from this research inference. Then you sleep over that. After 5 years, you wake up like Rip Van and Winkle. The American Revolution is over. You see the story of Rip Van Winkle. You wake up like Rip Van Winkle and issue a notice. No mother's son can save you. Right? Those are my words. Not the words of the Supreme Court. No mother's son can save the officer because of the fact that he has slept over his rights. Vigilantibus non dormantibus jura subvenient. Law aids the vigilant man, not the sleeping man. Right? So therefore, in such cases, though the courts have said that you can't invoke the enlarged period of limitation to demand duty under 11A of the Central Excise Act, or the 73rd section of the Service Tax Law, or the 28th section of the Customs Act. Because the land law that has been employed by the statute in all these 3 legislations is the same. Among our child offshore versus Commissioner of Customs Cochin, that's the Supreme Court judgment. Where the Supreme Court said all these 3 legislations have the same role to play, the same type of principles have been embedded in the statutory mechanisms in 11A of Excise, 28 of Customs, 73 of Service Tax. You can't change the mechanism. Read into it your own fictions and figments of imagination, and therefore notice should be supported by evidence, notice should be substantiated by allegations, not mere bald allegations. Right? Now let us suppose the department has concluded in your favor in one case, overlapping period, another case they say this is suppression of fact, again the department comes, because the Supreme Court would say in the Ramsugar's case, EC Industries, E&B Industries, Continental Joint Venture, number of them, Lawson and Tugro. All these cases the Supreme Court has said that if the department has knowledge of the facts in one case and concluded in your favor or gone against you, again they can't start another proceeding on the same, like res judicata. Okay? These are some important judgments which come in to one's mind when you look at the recovery assessment. There is another important aspect. Recovery from legal errors, I think it's pointed out, third bracket. In income tax law, you would have noticed that there are a series of provisions where assessment of a dead person, there are a number of provisions. How you assess a dead person, who is to serve with notice, successor, legal error, how you bring him on record. Assessment of companies which are in liquidation, assessment of firms that are closed on the partner, each individual partner, so on and so forth. Assessment of agents of non-residents, there are a series of provisions, well-defined parameters, each provision. In service tax law, in excise law, and in this law, unfortunately, barring a few exceptions, there is no provision to recover from a dead man what is due from the father can't be recovered from the son. So these principles have come up before the courts of law in the upper high court, the high court, Supreme Court, and those principles will inform the interpretation here. You can't read into this saying that no, we have a provision. There is no provision of that nature here. Right? So these are some of the aspects which I thought I will get today to bring to your kind notice. Lastly, but not in the least, on imposition of penalties, the same type of arguments that you would advance earlier. Act as non-facilitative nisi mensitria. Act and the omission should concur to constitute a criminal offence. Mere act without intention, there should be an intention, there should be a motive, there should be a knowledge, there should be a belief, there should be a culpable mental state to say that you are liable for penal action. It can't be just initiated because of power to impose a penalty. That's the general principle. These principles will equally inform the interpretation of the current provisions of the GST regime. Now I would request my friends to, with the permission of the chair, if I have, do I have 5 minutes?
Yeah, 5 minutes you can.
Oh, fantastic. Morning will take more than 50 minutes if you are. Yes, sir. Please.
Mr. Ravishankar, we were all waiting for a day to hear from Justice Ravishankar. When is that day to come?
Sorry?
We were waiting to hear from Justice Ravishankar.
Oh, okay.
Yes. When is the day to come? Number one. Number two, of late we
I am already 60, sir. Where is the question of justice being rendered to public by the time you... All those will not happen. Not, I don't want that either in this life or the life of an ant or a naked worm.
Of late now we raised some authority for advance rulings and GST. One is with regard to the export of services, but even though the foreign exchange is issued by the person rendering the services, it is subject to GST. Yes, number one, question and one more AR ruling. And number two is head office providing the services to the branch office by way of a cost allocation, the expense sharing, or that kind of thing. What is the pending nature of these two, and what is that?
Yeah, if you look at the provisions of relating to advance ruling, I had an occasion to deal with one of these cases which you mentioned with a friend of mine 2 days back. 100 and yes, I interpret that problem.
Particularly entities providing marketing services or payroll services.
No, I saw the decision.
This is a foreign currency, foreign exchange in India, and AR ruling says GST is payable.
Now, first and foremost, let me tell you about the binding effect. One hundred and three. 103 is to what extent and how it applies. Whether you are bound forever by this ruling, answer is no. If the matrix of facts will be changed, suppose a transaction has been pointed out, advance ruling is anticipated, you get an advance ruling against you. It is open to you to change your fact matrix, enter into a new agreement. Your transaction has not commenced. It is perfectly within your right that you enter into another agreement where you amend the agreement terms in such a way that it conforms with what the authority has found to be absent in the earlier case, number one. In such case, this advance ruling has no binding effect. Secondly, it applies only to that person who has sought the advance ruling. It's not like an affiliate order which by like a tribunal's order, which becomes a public domain order that anybody and everybody, Tom, Dick and Son and Harry, John and Henry can use it. It's not so. The other is that it will apply only in respect, let us say there are 5 agreements, 5 different types of agreement. One agreement has been put before the advance ruling authority for a ruling. It applies only in respect of the agreement. It can't be mutatis applied to all the other agreements to say that this ruling will apply. In respect of agreement B, C, D and E, it will apply only to A. Then the advance ruling will not be binding if the facts change, law changes, or circumstances supporting the original advance ruling has referred. That is why I was told 103. If you go for an appellate, I am finding of late that all these advance rulings that have come, at least 80% to 85% of them are not serving the purpose for which the authority has been constituted. Secondly, the same fate meets the person to go to the appellate authority for advance ruling. The question is what other remedy do you have in respect of such an advance ruling which has gone adversely without consideration of fact or evidence or some other point of law where there is a grey area. The only course available is to go to the High Court in Article 226 and file a writ petition. A writ petition, you have to demonstrate that the order is patently perverse, the order is demonstrably arbitrary, the order has been passed without consideration of facts or application of mind to the law that is relevant to the subject. If these are demonstrated, with the help of the provisions that are enforced, you may get a ruling from the High Court, but the High Court will be loath to go into the fact matrix. That's the whole problem. They may remand the case. If you make out a case for a remand with specific directions to the lower authority to whom it is remanded back, you stand a chance in the High Court. But High Court nowadays is loath to go into the fact matrices and evaluate facts in a petition. That's the whole problem. Yeah, please.
And the second one, that they are about head office sharing the expenditure to the branches and the cost allocation, cost apportionment.
See there.
GST payable and such.
No, if you look at the decisions of the tribunals that were rendered in KPIT comments, did you read that order? It's a reported case. I argued it in the Bombay Tribunal in 2 years back. And another decision of Infosys Technologies. Another decision which is pending, which is stay granted but wrong order, pending before the tribunal. This Infosys BPO, another case. And yet another case is KPIT comments which was argued in 2013 March, 7th March. You read those judgments. And if you can apply those judgments to the scenario concerned, then if the facts are almost similar, you can discard the advance ruling authority or go to the High Court against that order. That's my view. Any other questions? Yeah, yes. Sir, can you get to the mic? Yes, why not?
Hello. All of us know that the ICAI regulates the profession of accountancy. Now, can a regulatory profession be considered as a taxable service? Is it constitutionally valid? See, it is similar to regulation of this traffic by policeman. For a small violation, charge some fine and close it. He is not charging any service tax or GST.
The problem lies, the solution lies in the problem itself. And let me explain. Reserve Bank of India regulates banking. Correct? Insurance Development and Regulatory Authority of India regulates insurance. Right? Securities Exchange Board of India regulates whatever. Okay? Securities. Now, they don't have a system where they have members. Reserve Bank of India doesn't have members. It licenses banks. It grants authority to banks to do business. It acts as an authority to oversee, superintend and penalize people if they're going off the tangent. That is the function they perform. Here the problem is you act as a self-regulatory body and also do certain things to further the interest of the people who are within your framework, like conducting seminars, conducting symposia, conducting jamborees. No, let us face the fact. And for a consideration, if it's simply you be a member of the institute, you pay 2,000 or 3,000, whatever, you collect, right? Account for it, close the whole chapter there. Monthly, once you publish something which is given on the internet or given by post, which comes in a total condition as it used to 40 years back, right? That ends the matter. Here is the situation. When you go 10 miles ahead and you do this, you do that, you want to do this, you educate them, you say you come here, every day you get, as soon as you get up in the morning and put on this wretched instrument, first thing is ICI, some message has come. I don't know. I have to say this or not say this. That's the situation. What sort of a regulatory body are you? Message sending regulatory body. You should regulate these things. We are not going to give you any messages. Your job is this. If a public comes and complains against you, we will take disciplinary action. If that is the type of regulation, that is a service. That's not a service at all. Now, what is taxable service? Taxable service is being rendered by one person to another for a consideration. Not the 5,000 rupees paid every year. No. In addition to that, you keep paying 5 lakhs a year. Every day one seminar or one conference, 25 idlis and 30 vadas or 5 packets of biscuit with 1 gallon of tea. That sort of service, obviously, if you render, and that activity is liable to tax because you are going beyond the regulatory framework. Who asked you to do that? That's the whole problem, according to me. So the solution lies within the problem. Stop the problem. Solution is there. Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Friends, we had a fabulous technical session. Landmark judgment impacting the GST from the speaker, a moving encyclopedia. It's time to thank the speaker for his gracious presence on the occasion and his valuable time and his technical capital. It's time to present a memento and a shawl to the speaker as a token of appreciation and gratitude. May I request branch chairman to come forward and do the honor. Thanks, Chairman. Thank you, sir. Let's break for tea and come back in another 15 minutes for your next technical.